Captain Lee Gina rubbed her tired eyes and stared at the scanner display for the third time in 10 minutes. The numbers hadn't changed, but they still made no sense. 3 weeks into their deep space exploration mission, the crew of Horizon's Edge had stumbled upon something that shouldn't exist. "This is impossible," she muttered, tapping her fingers against the command chair's armrest. The stellar cartography maps clearly showed this region as Sector 7 Alpha, a dead zone where an ancient supernova had obliterated everything billions of years ago. No planets, no asteroids, no cosmic debris, just empty void. Park Min-ho, the ship's communications officer, suddenly straightened in his seat like he'd been struck by lightning. His headset crackled with static, then fell silent. He pulled it off and stared at his captain with wide eyes. "Captain, you need to hear this," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. He transferred the audio to the bridge speakers, and the entire crew listened as a series of mathematical pulses filled the air. Prime numbers, Fibonacci sequences, then something more complex that made their universal translator circuits spark and hum. "It's not just broadcasting," Park Min-ho continued, his excitement growing. "Watch this." He sent out a simple mathematical response through their communications array. Within seconds, the mysterious signal changed, incorporating their response, and building upon it with increasingly sophisticated patterns. "Dear ancestors," whispered Navigator Osujin from her station, "it's having a conversation with us." Engineer Kim Haeun's diagnostic panel lit up like a festival display. Warning lights blinked red and yellow as energy readings spiked beyond anything in their databases. She ran her hands through her black hair, frustrated by instruments that couldn't properly measure whatever they'd discovered. "The power source is massive," she reported, her voice tight with concern. "I'm detecting energy signatures that match theoretical calculations for matter-antimatter reactors. But the scale is... it's like comparing a candle to a star. Whatever's generating this signal has been active for at least a millennium, possibly much longer." Dr. Yu Wonsik, the ship's xenobiologist, abandoned his research station and moved to the main viewport. His scientific mind raced as he processed the implications. If something has survived in this dead system for over 1,000 years, it represents technology far beyond our current understanding. Captain Lee stood and walked to the forward observation deck. The Horizon's Edge was humanity's most advanced exploration vessel, equipped with quantum sensors that could detect a grain of sand from 1,000 kilometers away. Yet whatever waited ahead had remained hidden until they were practically on top of it. "Reduce speed to quarter impulse," she ordered. "Raise defensive shields, but keep weapons powered down. We don't want to appear threatening." As their ship glided deeper into the dead system, the cosmic dust began to swirl in strange patterns. At first it looked like natural stellar wind, but the movements were too precise, too purposeful. The dust particles seemed to be arranging themselves, creating pathways through space. Then they saw it. Engineer Kim Haeun gasped and nearly dropped her tablet. Communications Officer Park Min-ho forgot to breathe. Even Captain Lee, who had seen nebulae that stretched across solar systems and watched stars being born in distant galaxies, felt her jaw drop. A crystalline structure materialized from the cosmic dust, like a mountain emerging from fog. It was enormous, easily the size of a small moon, but constructed with geometric precision that hurt to look at directly. Faceted surfaces caught and reflected light that shouldn't exist in this dead region of space, creating rainbow patterns that danced across its surface. The structure pulsed with internal energy, each heartbeat of light synchronized with the mathematical signals they'd been receiving. Smaller crystalline formations orbited around the main body like satellites, their surfaces covered in symbols that shifted and changed as the humans watched. "My instruments are going crazy," Kim Haeun reported, her voice filled with professional fascination despite her fear. "The material composition doesn't match anything in our databases. It's like the structure exists partially in our dimension and partially somewhere else." Captain Lee activated the ship's recording systems. Whatever they were witnessing would need to be documented for posterity. This was humanity's first contact with technology that clearly originated from an advanced alien civilization. "Are we safe at this distance?" she asked her engineer. Kim Hayan checked her readings carefully. The energy patterns seemed stable. No weapon signatures detected, but honestly, I'm not sure our sensors would recognize alien weapon technology if we saw it. The crystalline structure continued to pulse, and the mathematical signals grew more complex. It was clearly aware of their presence, possibly studying them just as intently as they were studying it. The cosmic dust around their ship began to glow softly, as if welcoming them to this ancient graveyard turned technological miracle. The transporter beam faded, leaving Captain Lee Gina and her away team standing in what could only be described as impossible architecture. The moment their boots touched the crystalline floor, Dr. Choi Jiho's tricorder went wild with readings that made no scientific sense. Atmospheric composition is— "Wait, this can't be right," Jiho muttered, tapping his device. "Oxygen levels are perfect for human breathing, but the readings keep changing. It's like the air is adjusting itself to match our biology." Security Chief Yoon Dae-hyun gripped his plasma rifle tighter, his eyes scanning the chamber for threats. The walls around them seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting in a rhythm that almost matched their heartbeats. Surfaces that should have been solid appeared to flow like liquid metal, yet remained firm under their feet. "Captain, the gravity just shifted," reported Lieutenant Kang Minji, the team's science officer. She watched her equipment readings fluctuate wildly. "We're experiencing standard Earth gravity now, but 30 seconds ago it was twice that strong. The structure is definitely responding to our presence." Captain Lee removed her helmet cautiously, trusting her doctor's readings. The air tasted clean and fresh, carrying a faint metallic tang that reminded her of Earth's mountain regions after a thunderstorm. Around them, corridors stretched in directions that hurt to contemplate too deeply. Some passages curved upward and somehow led downward, while others seemed to fold in on themselves like cosmic origami. "Stay close together," she ordered her team. "Whatever built this place has technology that makes our most advanced systems look like stone tools." Engineer Kim Haeun pulled out her portable scanner and immediately cursed in Korean. "The energy readings are impossible. The walls themselves are generating power, but I can't detect any source. It's like the entire structure is one massive energy converter, pulling power from somewhere we can't measure." As they moved deeper into the construct, the walls began to glow with soft, pulsing light that seemed to anticipate their movements. When they approached a sealed passage, the barrier dissolved like morning mist. When they needed to climb to a higher level, crystalline steps materialized from the floor itself. "This place is alive," whispered Dr. Choi Jiho, his scientific mind struggling to process what he was witnessing. "Not biologically alive, but aware, conscious. It's reading our thoughts, our intentions, maybe even our DNA." Suddenly, the chamber around them expanded dramatically, walls stretching away until they stood in a vast amphitheater that definitely hadn't existed moments before. Pillars of pure light rose from the floor, and the ceiling became transparent, revealing the cosmos beyond in breathtaking detail. Then they appeared. Holographic figures materialized in the center of the chamber, their forms shimmering like heat. Mirages. They were tall and elegant, easily 3 meters in height, with limbs that seemed too long and graceful for any biological creature. Their faces were vaguely humanoid, but refined to an almost ethereal beauty, with large eyes that held depths of knowledge that made the humans feel like children. Security. Chief Yoon Dae-hyun raised his weapon instinctively, but Captain Lee placed a restraining hand on his arm. These beings, whatever they were, showed no signs of aggression. Instead, they radiated a sense of ancient patience and profound curiosity. The lead figure stepped forward, its movements flowing like water. When it spoke, the sounds that emerged were unlike anything the humans had ever heard. Musical tones that seemed to carry meaning beyond words, harmonics that resonated in their bones and made their universal translators work overtime to find equivalent concepts. "Greetings, young travelers," the being said, its translated voice carrying undertones of vast age and accumulated wisdom. "We are the Kailari, guardians of this sanctuary. We have observed your approach with great interest." Captain Lee stepped forward, fighting the urge to bow before these obviously superior beings. I am Captain Lee Gina of the United Earth vessel Horizon's Edge. We detected your signals and came to investigate. We mean no harm. The Kalari leader tilted its head in what might have been amusement. Harm? Such a concept has little meaning. To us now. We transcended physical vulnerability long before your star was born. But you are fascinating. Other Kalari figures moved closer, studying the humans with obvious interest. Their examinations felt gentle but thorough, as if they were reading the humans' entire evolutionary history just by looking at them. You are not the first to find this place, the leader continued, gesturing to areas of the chamber where other equipment could be seen partially embedded in the crystalline walls. Many species have discovered our sanctuary over the millennia. Most approached with fear, others with greed, some with rigid logic that prevented true understanding. Engineer Kim Haeun noticed the embedded artifacts and felt a chill run down her spine. What happened to them? They failed our tests and departed, or chose to become part of our collection of knowledge, the Kalari replied matter-of-factly. But you humans, you interest us greatly. Your minds work in patterns we have not encountered before. You balance contradiction with harmony, chaos with order. Most intriguing. The implications of those words hit the away team like a physical blow. They weren't just explorers who had stumbled upon an ancient artifact. They were specimens being evaluated by beings whose technology and knowledge made humanity look like insects trying to understand quantum mechanics. The Kalari guide introduced itself with a sound that their translators rendered as Veltar, though Captain Lee suspected the true name contained harmonics no human throat could produce. As it led them deeper into the crystalline structure, the walls around them shifted and reformed, creating new passages that seemed to anticipate their destination. Your species intrigues us, Veltar explained, its holographic form gliding effortlessly through corridors that bent space itself. Most civilizations that reach this level of technology follow predictable patterns. They become purely logical, abandoning emotion, or they remain driven by instinct, never achieving true wisdom. Humans are different. The first chamber they entered made Dr. Choi Jiho stumble backward in shock. Scattered across the crystalline floor were the remains of what had once been living beings. Not skeletons exactly, but fossilized forms that had been preserved in the alien material, like insects in amber. Each represented a different species, their final moments captured as they worked desperately on incomprehensible machines. The Zephyrians, Veltar noted, gesturing to a collection of 6-armed creatures frozen around a geometric puzzle. Masters of mathematics, yet they could not see beyond pure calculation. They spent 73 days attempting to solve this through equations. Alone, Lieutenant Kang Minji knelt beside another set of remains, these belonging to beings that looked almost plant-like, with crystalline growths extending from their limbs. What about these? The Verdani Collective, Veltar replied. They approached every challenge through group consensus and biological harmony. Admirable in many ways, but lacking the individual creativity needed for breakthrough thinking. Engineer Kim Haeun studied the machine the fossilized aliens had been working on. It resembled a 3-dimensional mandala made of pure energy, with geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Power conduits snaked across the floor in seemingly random directions, connecting to crystalline nodes that pulsed with different colored lights. What exactly is this supposed to do, she asked, running her portable scanner over the device. It is a harmony engine, Veltar explained. It converts chaotic energy into ordered power by finding the underlying patterns that connect all things. Every species that has attempted this test has approached it according to their nature. The logical races tried to calculate the correct configuration. The emotional species attempted to feel their way to the solution. The traditional societies looked for ancient wisdom to guide them. Kim Haeun circled the device, her engineering mind automatically cataloging connections and energy flows. The obvious approach would be to trace each power conduit to its logical destination, creating a balanced grid that distributed energy evenly across all nodes. But something about that solution felt wrong. How many species have successfully completed this test? Captain Lee asked, though she suspected the answer. In 12,000 years, only the Kalari themselves have succeeded, Veltar replied. We transcended the need for physical form, partly through solving challenges like this one. It requires a mind that can hold contradictions in balance, that can see order in chaos and chaos in order. Dr. Choi Ji-ho was examining the fossilized remains more closely, his medical scanner picking up trace elements that told stories of desperation and failure. Some of these beings worked here for months before becoming part of the structure. They chose their fate, Veltar said, without emotion. When faced with failure, they could return to their ships and depart, or they could join our collection of knowledge, adding their experiences to our understanding of the universe. Kim Haeun ignored the conversation, focusing entirely on the energy matrix before her. She could see how previous species had approached the problem. The mathematical races had created perfect symmetrical patterns that looked beautiful, but generated no power. The emotional species had made organic, flowing connections that felt right, but accomplished nothing. The traditional societies had tried to recreate patterns from their own cultures, failing to understand that this was something entirely new. But humans were different. They could be logical and emotional simultaneously. They could respect tradition while embracing innovation. They could see patterns that others missed because they didn't limit themselves to one way of thinking. Instead of following the obvious energy pathways, Kim Haeun began creating connections that looked completely random. She linked high-energy nodes to low-power receivers, created feedback loops that should have caused system failures, and established pathways that seemed to violate basic principles of energy distribution. "What are you doing?" Security Chief Yoon Dae-hyun asked nervously, watching sparks fly from some of the connections. "Something that makes no sense," Kim Haeun replied with a grin. "Which is exactly why it might work." The device began to respond, its crystalline components glowing brighter as chaotic energy patterns suddenly found harmony. The random-seeming connections she had created were actually following a deeper pattern, one that existed beneath the obvious structure. The machine hummed to life, casting brilliant light throughout the chamber that made the fossilized remains of failed species seem to glow with their own inner fire. "Extraordinary," Veltar observed, its holographic form brightening with what might have been excitement. "You solved it through controlled chaos, creating order by embracing disorder. This is why your species caught our attention across the vastness of space." The activated Harmony engine sent pulses of energy throughout the entire structure, causing walls to become transparent and revealing the vast complexity of the alien construct. They could see other chambers, other tests, other opportunities to prove that humanity possessed something unique in the galaxy. The journey to the deepest chamber took them through passages that seemed to exist outside normal space-time. Veltar led the human team down crystalline corridors that folded in on themselves, past rooms filled with technologies that defied every law of physics they knew. The walls themselves told stories through shifting patterns of light, showing glimpses of civilizations that had risen and fallen long before Earth's sun had even formed. "Prepare yourselves," Veltar warned as they approached a massive circular door that seemed to be made of condensed starlight. "What you are about to witness will forever change how your species views its place in the cosmos." The door dissolved at their approach, revealing a chamber so vast it seemed to contain its own horizon. The ceiling stretched impossibly high, filled with what looked like a living representation of the entire galaxy. Stars moved in real time, showing the current positions of billions of solar systems, while colored streams of light connected worlds that harbored intelligent life. Captain Lee gasped as she recognized the familiar spiral arm where Earth resided, a tiny blue dot pulsing with warm light among countless other worlds. But as she watched, many of those other lights began to dim and fade, entire civilizations winking out of existence as she observed. "This is the Galactic Archive," Veltar explained, its holographic form becoming more solid and detailed in this sacred space. "Every species that has achieved spaceflight is recorded here. Every civilization that has reached for the stars becomes part of our eternal memory." Dr. Choi Ji-ho stepped closer to examine clusters of dead worlds, his medical scanner picking up trace elements of their final moments. What happened to them all? Disease, war, natural disasters? All of those and more, Veltar replied sadly. But mostly they destroyed themselves through their own limitations. The Axothians became so focused on perfection that they forgot how to adapt when their perfect worlds changed. The Relkari achieved immortality but lost the will to create anything new. The Zephonic Empire conquered 1,000 worlds but could never conquer their own greed. The holographic display zoomed in on different sections of the galaxy, showing the rise and fall of countless civilizations in fast-forward. Species that had mastered faster-than-light travel, built incredible cities that spanned entire planets, and developed technologies that seemed like magic to human eyes. Yet each one eventually reached a point where they stopped growing, stopped evolving, stopped pushing beyond their boundaries. We Kailari were different, Veltar continued, gesturing to a region of space where ancient stars pulsed with artificial light. We transcended our physical limitations, not through technology alone, but by learning to balance all aspects of existence: logic and emotion, individual achievement and collective harmony, creation and destruction. Engineer Kim Heon studied the energy patterns surrounding the Kailari worlds. You became pure consciousness, like living energy? In a sense, yes. We shed our physical forms millions of years ago and became guardians of galactic knowledge. We have watched civilizations rise and fall, always hoping to find a species that could inherit our legacy without repeating the mistakes of those who came before. The chamber's walls suddenly came alive with new projections, showing detailed analyses of hundreds of species. Each one was categorized by their strengths and ultimate weaknesses. Some were too aggressive, destroying themselves in endless wars. Others became too passive, allowing natural disasters or invasions to end their civilizations. Many achieved incredible technological advancement, but lost their creativity and ability to adapt. Then we detected signals from your world, Veltar said, and the display focused on Earth, a young species that had barely begun to explore space, yet showed characteristics we had never encountered before. You fight wars but also create art. You compete fiercely as individuals, but sacrifice for your communities. You destroy your environment, but also work desperately to save it. Captain Lee felt a chill run down her spine as she realized the implications. You've been watching us, studying us. For the past 1,000 of your years, yes, we needed to be certain. Other species have shown promise before, only to disappoint us in the end. But humans, you continue to surprise us. You face extinction and find ways to survive. You encounter problems that should destroy you, and instead use them as opportunities to grow stronger. Lieutenant Kang Minji was studying the technical specifications scrolling past in the holographic display. The knowledge you're showing us, this is technology centuries beyond our current capabilities. It is our gift to you, Veltar replied, but also our test. These archives contain the collected wisdom of 10 million years of galactic civilization, star maps showing the locations of other ancient repositories, technologies that will allow you to guide younger species as they emerge into the galactic community, but most importantly, the knowledge of every mistake that led to the downfall of previous civilizations. The weight of responsibility settled on the human team like a physical burden. They weren't just explorers who had stumbled upon an ancient artifact. They were being chosen as the next guardians of galactic civilization, inheritors of wisdom that spanned epochs. Why us? Captain Lee asked, her voice barely above a whisper. What makes humanity so special? Veltar's holographic form seemed to smile. You never stop growing. Every other species we have encountered eventually reaches a plateau where they become comfortable with their achievements. They stop questioning, stop exploring, stop pushing beyond their limitations. But humans, even when you achieve great success, you immediately begin asking what comes next. This drive to constantly exceed your own boundaries is what the galaxy needs. The return journey to Earth took 3 months, but it felt like 3 lifetimes to the crew of Horizon's Edge. Their ship's databanks were filled with knowledge that would fundamentally change human civilization forever. Captain Lee Gina spent sleepless nights reviewing the Kailari archives, trying to comprehend the magnitude of what they had discovered. Engineer Kim Haeun worked around the clock in the ship's laboratory, using Kailari blueprints to construct prototype devices that seemed to violate every law of physics she had learned. Her first successful creation was a power generator no larger than a coffee cup that produced enough clean energy to run the entire ship for a week. "This is impossible," she muttered for the 100th time, watching particles of matter convert directly into usable energy with perfect efficiency. According to our science, this should create a black hole, not sustainable power. Dr. Choi Ji-ho had his own revelations to process. The medical knowledge contained in the Kailari databases showed him treatments for diseases that had plagued humanity since the dawn of civilization. Cancer, Alzheimer's, genetic disorders that had seemed incurable were all easily treatable with the proper understanding of cellular regeneration and genetic repair. When Horizon's Edge finally entered Earth's solar system, they were met by a fleet of defense ships whose crews had no idea that the universe had just changed forever. Captain Lee transmitted her identification codes and requested immediate priority docking at the International Space Station. Horizon's Edge. "This is Earth Defense Command," came the response. "You're 3 months overdue. We had assumed you were lost with all hands." "Not lost," Captain Lee replied, looking out at the blue and white marble that was home, "but definitely not the same crew that left here 4 months ago." The emergency session of the United Earth Council was held in Geneva, with representatives attending both in person and through holographic projection from around the globe. Captain Lee stood before the assembly, still wearing her deep space uniform, carrying data storage devices that contained the accumulated wisdom of 10 million years of galactic civilization. "What I'm about to share with you will challenge everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe," she began, her voice steady despite the enormity of what she was revealing. "We are not alone. We never were. And we have just been invited to join a community of civilizations that spans the entire galaxy." The presentation took 6 hours. Representatives from every nation watched in stunned silence as holographic displays showed them the rise and fall of countless alien civilizations, the technology that would revolutionize human society, and the responsibility that came with this incredible gift. President Chen of the Pacific Alliance was the first to speak. "You're saying these Kailari chose us specifically out of all the species in the galaxy?" "They've been watching us for 1,000 years, Captain Lee confirmed. "Studying our wars, our art, our science, our ability to grow and adapt. Every other species they've encountered eventually reaches a plateau where they stop evolving. Humans never do. We always find a way to exceed our limitations." Within weeks, the first Kailari technologies were being implemented across Earth. Engineer Kim Haeun worked with teams of scientists to construct clean energy generators that could power entire continents without producing any pollution. The devices were so efficient that global energy scarcity became a thing of the past overnight. Dr. Choi Ji-ho collaborated with medical researchers to develop treatments that seemed miraculous by previous standards. The first successful trial eliminated type 1 diabetes in children by teaching their immune systems to repair damaged pancreatic cells. Cancer treatments that had taken months of chemotherapy were replaced by genetic therapies that took hours. But the most profound change wasn't technological, it was philosophical. Humanity suddenly understood that they weren't just explorers or conquerors in the cosmic arena. They were gardeners, tasked with nurturing younger civilizations and helping them avoid the mistakes that had destroyed so many species before them. The first test of this new responsibility came sooner than expected. Deep space monitoring stations detected artificial signals from a star system 47 light-years away. The patterns were primitive compared to Kailari technology, but they showed unmistakable signs of intelligence. "It's a young species," Lieutenant Kang Minji reported during a briefing at the newly established Galactic Relations Department. "Their mathematics are basic, but they're definitely trying to communicate with the cosmos." Captain Lee, now promoted to Director of First Contact Operations, studied the signal patterns. "Then we have our first assignment as Galactic Guardians. We need to make contact carefully, gently, and help guide them toward a positive future." The first human embassy ship launched 6 months later, equipped with Kailari technology, but powered by human wisdom and compassion. Its mission was to make contact with the young species, assess their potential, and begin the delicate process of introducing them to the galactic community. As Captain Lee stood on the observation deck of the new orbital headquarters, watching Earth's first interstellar diplomatic mission depart for distant stars, she reflected on how far humanity had come. They had always dreamed of finding their place among the stars, but they had imagined themselves as explorers or conquerors. Instead, they had become something far more important: teachers, guides, and protectors of galactic civilization itself. The universe was vast and full of wonders, and humanity would spend the next 1,000 years ensuring that every species that reached for the stars would have the chance to experience those wonders without destroying themselves in the process. The night sky no longer seemed empty and cold. It was filled with potential, with young civilizations waiting to be discovered and nurtured, with ancient wisdom waiting to be shared, and with adventures that would span millennia. Humanity had found its true purpose among the stars. The end.